Hi guys, we want to talk about a really important topic today, and that is, being in a domestic violent relationship with a narcissist. And so this is a really important topic because a lot of people, can't free themselves from these situations because of the narcissistic relationship that they're in. And so I just want to touch base on, what is domestic violence, because a lot of people actually think that domestic violence is purely the person being beaten up and having physical scars to show the damage that's been done, but it's actually not. There's also emotional abuse that also falls under the domestic violent banner. And so what can actually happen is that there could be just emotional abuse happening for the person, which is very damaging to the person. Like, they end up with absolutely no self-esteem and they lose their identity, and it happens to, even the strongest women out there. And so they end up humiliated and completely lost in life and low self-esteem, self-doubt, and they end up, really sort of stuck in this relationship with this narcissistic partner. And then there's, the physical abuse that can also come with this type of relationship if you stay long enough, because quite often it starts off as an emotional abusive relationship, and it slowly progresses to, the physical violence. And so the reason why we wanted to touch on this today is because a lot of people are in these relationships with narcissistic men. And narcissistic men can be, really, really charismatic and appear to have it all together, and, they're always quite liked by their family members, by their peers, and nobody sort of understands or even would even dream that on the fact that they would be at home, abusing their partners. And so this actually makes it a lot harder for the woman to free herself from the situation, because sometimes, these narcissistic men, have high roles out there in the workforce, and they're quite liked out in the community. So for the woman to free herself, she finds it quite hard, because are the people around them going to actually believe them? And so, I work with a lot of people who end up, having to really sort of work on themselves, because they can't free themselves from these situations based on, what are people going to think? Are they going to believe me? That the narcissist can end up making you so doubt yourself that you actually doubt the situation that you're even in.
Yeah, this topic is a really important one to me, and I think it's a very important one to a lot of people. And something that I want to get on and talk about is how common it is for men to think it's okay to be emotional and physically abusive towards women. And we see this on all scales, even for us on this page, where grown men think it's okay to try and intimidate Natalie by making certain comments about what she does in therapy and that type of stuff, and feeling okay about it, to actually intimidate like another woman. And this is happening way too often. I mean, we see it in the streets, like men are road raging other women. We see it a lot. I've seen Natalie's been ran off the road by abusive males out on the street, and it's got to a point now that as a society we really need to step up and start calling these blokes out. And for any blokes that might be watching this right now and saying, oh, who are you just to get on here and say this? Well, I've seen my mother's head smashed through a front door by a narcissist that everyone in town loved. And what they tend to do is they tend to discredit anyone that could possibly expose them. So everyone in town thinks they're fantastic, they're popular, they've got money, people can actually get work from them, but then they discredit you, and then everything you say, everyone second guesses you. So the narcissist gets to protect their reputation, and the female involved in the abuse also gets called a liar because the narcissist is so well known. So that's for anyone that thinks that I don't have any experience and don't have a reason to be on here saying this stuff. But it's now got to get to a point, and one thing I noticed on our page that really pushed me to jump on today is that when one bloke would say something intimidating towards Natalie, their friends would start jumping on and think it's okay. So all that says to me is they're just attracting alike. So it's got to come down to your group of friends and your close family members start calling out these people and exposing them and making them not feel right about it. Even this humour, to think that you can get on and intimidate women on a social media platform. There's still females. It's no different at all to whether you go up in a shop and call a woman a bitch to her face and stand over her. Why do you think it's any different to come onto a social media site or their Facebook page and try and intimidate them that way? It's exactly the same thing. It's still the same female, just that you weren't in their physical presence at the time. So I know we're in a new generation, new age sort of technology and that these days, and a lot of people are still adjusting to it, but it's actually got even worse now because these weak men think that they can hide behind these phones and these cameras and just continually take it to another level with women on social media. And I know the flip side of that, people, well, if you don't want it, don't go on social media, but that's not the point. Any woman, anywhere, and that's for men as well, we should be allowed to go on social media and not get intimidated and bullied. And you know, you see a lot of the stuff on the news and radio and even, you know, in your local areas about bullying's out of control, we're not going to tolerate it, and domestic violence is at an all-time high. But no one's calling out the people in their actual circles. And that, for me personally, I think that's where it's got to start. Because once you start calling out the people around you and making them realise that this is not on and we're not going to tolerate it as your mate or your out, that's when it'll start to change.
And I guess that's where, you know, it comes for women that they need to be able to speak up and, you know, feel safe enough to do so. And so sometimes it's literally just reaching out to the right person so that you can get the right advice, so that you can, you know, discuss what you're feeling. Because if you are in a relationship with a narcissist, like I said, it can be a lot harder to actually free yourself from that situation because they have you second guessing everything about yourself. And, you know, your self-esteem would be so low that you're too afraid to actually even have the confidence to speak up and reach out to someone to, you know, you have that doubt that they're actually going to believe you. And so as, you know, women, we need to be able to, you know, speak up and you know, bring to attention what these males are actually doing to you in your life. But if you're in a situation where, you know, your life is in danger, you know, you need to be very careful with how you deal with these type of personalities. So if you're in a situation now where you know, it's very violent, you know, I don't recommend that you, you know, speak up to the person that you're with. I recommend that you go to the police or you go to your doctor or a psychologist or a counsellor and start to free yourself from that situation, you know, gently. So you've always got to be very mindful because you need to be one step ahead with these narcissists because they're quite intelligent and so everything is almost premeditated. So, you know, the way that they conduct themselves in the relationship is all based on their needs and what they're going to get out of it. They don't care at all about how you feel. So when they see you sad and crying, and they don't have any empathy for that at all. They actually just feed off that. And what I tend to find is that you know, women that are with narcissistic men, they're quite very often sensitive women. So, you know, very empathic women, and for some reason the empath is quite often drawn to the narcissist. And, you know, maybe that is because, you know, it's the opposite, and the opposite, you know, it often are attracted to each other. But so why I wanted to mention the sensitivity is because quite often, you know, when you're really, really sensitive, you tend to absorb so much of that toxic energy that narcissist actually is displaying. And so that, you know, makes you even more heavy. So you end up really heavy and burdened and lost, confused, no identity. You no longer know who you are. You know, your self-esteem's rock bottom, and you're so afraid to reach out because, you know, sometimes, like I said, these narcissists are, you know, really well liked by the people around them. And so you fear that people are not going to believe you. And quite often, and I have seen this in numerous cases, that they've actually sourced, you know, counselling to try and get, you know, things fixed. Like the woman will say, you know, can we try and fix this situation? And, you know, the man and the woman go to counselling together, and, you know, the narcissist is actually been so charismatic with the person that they've gone and seen that the counsellor or the psychologist or whoever actually, you know, ended up looking at the victim and saying, well, you know, what are you doing to create this situation? So the narcissist was actually that charismatic that they could pull the wool over the person's eyes that they were seeing. I just wanted to share that because I think that that's quite powerful, just to show you that a professional can sometimes not actually, you know, see what's going on with that narcissistic relationship.
Yes, there's a lot of different types of men that abuse women, and just to name a few, there's obviously the narcissist that to the outside world will come across the most lovable character and everyone wants to be their friend while they're abusing their wife behind closed doors. Then you've got the men that have trouble getting women, and this is the one that we sort of come across the most often, is because they have trouble getting a woman, they turn and resent women and have a hatred towards women because they can't get them themselves, so they do nasty things. And it's the one thing we've noticed, like every time Natalie's got any negativity from a male, 100% of the time they're a single male. And then you've got the blokes that have got mother issues, where they've got resentment towards their mothers and they just have a hatred towards women for some real deep-seated stuff, and think it's okay to take it out on every other woman that they come across. And for me as a male, I think what I'm seeing the most is a lot of women sort of screaming out for help and not enough men standing up for them and saying, you know, let's sort out our mates, let's have a look around our initial circles, and this is all males, to have a look around your group and think, is he beating his missus, is he abusing her? And you know, taking all your wife's money, that's a form of abuse, mate. You can't cut your wife off financially and leave her trapped like a prison in home. Like, I'll give an example of why, like, you get to that point in your relationship where you think that's okay. Go back to the day you met the woman that you're with now that you're doing that to, and imagine saying to her, here you go, my name's so-and-so, what I'm going to offer you is you're not going to be able to let us speak, do anything. I'm going to take all money. You won't be able to spend anything without my approval, and you'll do what you're told when you're told. Do you think that woman would have had anything to do with you? So if you don't think it's right, if you answer no to that question, why on earth do you think that's okay to do down the track to them? Because it is a form of abuse, and like Natalie says, this domestic violence is on so many different layers. If you're keeping your woman at home trapped with no money, like your own slave in a prison in her own house, that's abuse, any way you look at it. You mightn't be physically punching her, but you're destroying her life. And you do that to anyone. You're treating her like a dog, and that's abuse. If I took a dog and put it into a room and tied it there, the RSPCA would come and get me. So how is it any different? So what I wanted to sort of bring to this video is it's time that men look in their initial circles and call out people that are doing it. And this humorous stuff that we see where one bloke, you know, gives it to a woman and all their mates jump on top of board, they need to be exposed, and times have changed. It's 2018 now, so we're not in the caveman days where you whack the women over the head and drag them into the cave, boys. It's time to change that mindset, that old reptilian brain, and snap out of it and realise that, you know, we're on the same level as females, and you've got no right to be treating them like that anymore.
And so, you know, domestic violence can happen to anyone, you know, and, you know, there's been a lot of celebrities that have, you know, come forward that have been, you know, in these situations, and, you know, it happens to every sort of walks of life. So it doesn't matter if you're intelligent or, you know, you've got a lot of money. It does not matter. There's no sort of criteria. This happens across, like, all boards, you know, all walks of life. So, and, you know, what I just want to sort of say is that, you know, don't feel stupid, don't feel humiliated, don't feel like, how could you have let this happen to yourself? You know, the most important thing is that you do something about it, because the longer you leave it, like I said, it can often start with emotional abuse, and then it can end up and escalate to becoming, you know, physical violence. So, you know, don't stay in that situation. If you can relate to anything that we've discussed in this video today, you know, I really strongly advise that you go and speak to somebody and really reach out and speak up. You know, don't speak up to the abuser, because quite often when you do that, you know, when you start to try and take your control back from a narcissist, that's when it becomes, you know, violent, and that's when women end up in, you know, very big danger. So my advice is that you speak up to somebody that you feel that you can, like, you've got that connection with, because, you know, why waste the rest of your life? Like, you know, a lot of women stay for so long, and then they look back and they have so much regret, and they end up with a lot of resentment and guilt for themselves because, you know, leaving themselves in that situation and, you know, wasting the best years of their life. So if you can resonate with anything that we've discussed today, please, please, please do yourself a favour and, you know, speak up, reach out, get the help that you need. So thanks for watching.
Thanks.